Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the bestest tiny whoop that has ever existed and will ever exist for the foreseeable future. This is the Happy Model Mobula 7. I'm being sarcastic, of course, because it's the season to be tiny whooping and they are releasing so many, and I'm seeing all of these videos that say this is the absolute best, and then another one comes out, no, this is the absolute best. And I think for people watching the videos, it's really confusing when the word best in itself is subjective. You see, I do believe a lot of people think that this Mobula 7 is the best tiny whoop out there, but I don't agree. And the reason why I don't agree is because the thing that I like about tiny whoops is that they are, or should I say were, tiny. This is my favourite tiny whoop. It is the UK 65 and it's 65mm, which is the same size as the original brushed tiny whoops. I like that the tiny whoops are all now brushless, you know, because we've got a little bit more power out of them now and we've got great features. But I love this form factor for flying around the house. I like to get into really tight gaps, and you would think with this one being a 75mm frame against 65mm that, you know, it wouldn't make much of a difference, but it really does. When I'm trying to get through the same small gaps with this one, I'm bashing into them. And, you know, it's just a little bit bigger and it catches things, you know. So, to me, the tiny whoop really should stay this size for indoors. And then we've got the whole question now, well, they're going 2S, and it's not so much that 2S is too much for indoors because its camera angle can go flat. You can fly this one fine indoors, it's just that, you know, you can't get through the really small gaps. So for me, even though this one is a fantastic model, this one is still my favourite for indoors. But I think for outdoors, this is my second favourite, sort of. So I reviewed the Beta 65 and this one is the same size as this one, so 65mm. The problem with this one is that the camera angle is too high, and I found a way to fix that without using any 3D printers or anything like that. So, you know, you can go and watch the video of that one. And yeah, this one is really good outside, except for when you do a dive. When you do a dive and then level out, it yaws backwards and it pitches backwards violently. This one doesn't do that. I don't know if it's because it's slightly bigger or it's, you know, got a different tune, but this one definitely flies better outside and it's got more power. Anyway, let's take a look at the specifications. The motors are a 802 18,000 kV brushless motor. We've got a 4-blade here, and by the way, you might notice that mine are black and all of the other reviews are red. That is because I think people approached Happy Model and they got theirs direct as like a prototype. This is the finished version that I've got. It's the basic version as well that doesn't have the nice charger. So yeah, it's a 2S model, just like the Beta 65, and it's using 2 batteries again, so they are a high volt, and then we've got this connect here and they both have to be connected. So the batteries are a 250 milliamp 30 to 60 C, and even in this basic version I got given 2 spares of those, so that's really nice. Well, I say 2 spares, but really, you know, it's just 2 sets for 2 flights. Then we've got this 3D printed mount here for that going in there. It will fly off 1S if you just jumper one of these pins here when you plug just a 1S in, then you can fly it as a 1S, but as I say, my problem with this copter is not the fact that it's 2S, you know. If you want to fly 2S indoors and it's a little bit much for you, you can put Expo on there, as I say, so I'm not going to be doing that. So we have got a all-in-one CMOS camera. I like the fact that the antenna is coming out of the top there, because on the Beta 65 it comes out the back and you don't get great reception. It is only 25 milliwatt though, and I did a range test which you'll see a little bit later, and it was good for about 100 meters and no more than that really, so I actually think it's not quite outputting 25 milliwatt. We have got an F3 flight controller, and it's very similar to this one in that it has got an SPI based receiver, so the receiver is built into the flight controller, so there's no UART. And this is the FreeSky version, so it's got full telemetry in D16 mode, and you can also run it in D8 mode as well. Something that is better about this one though is that you can get it in the EU version, so the LBT version, and the FCC version, whereas this one you could only get it for the FCC version. So that might be a reason to go for this one if you aren't too bothered about getting through the really tiny gaps. So it's got a bind button on here, and my recommendation is to not take this canopy off because it's an absolute pain to get back on. They give you this screwdriver in the package, which is nice, but to get these to line up, it's almost impossible. So you can actually access the bind button, and just like this guy, you don't have to fiddle around holding it down while plugging the battery in. What you can do is you can power it up, and then you can press it down just for a couple of seconds, so it'll flash when you plug it in, and then when you hold it down it'll go solid, and then you can bind it with your Taranis. And you know, it's also available in FlySky and DSM2 and DSMX as well, which this guy isn't, although the UR65 is. So if you're after the smaller form factor but want DSMX, then go for the UR65 because it's not much different than this one. One thing that I found really impressive was the Betaflight setup. I really didn't have to change much at all. I think I just added the VTX channel on the on-screen display. I actually quite liked how the on-screen display was set up. We've got the USB connector underneath there, and the smart audio already set up, so you know, you can change your channel through there. You don't need to mess around with a button, but the button is accessible if you want to do that. And the camera is adjustable, which is just fantastic. So you're going to be able to fly this one indoors much easier than this one when it comes to speed, but again, just not getting through to the gaps. I would be careful with having a extreme angle on it though, because the circuit board is open and it does touch the F3 flight controller here, so you know, you might end up with a short, so be very careful with that, but I've not had any problems so far. You get given this nice instruction manual that tells you everything really that you need to know. I have no complaints there. This one has come with just a single charger, and you've got a switch there to go between high volt and normal, but I'm going to be using the charger that came with this guy to charge these up. And that's another reason why this one is still my favorite, because it's the cheapest yet you get the most amount of stuff. You get 3 batteries and you get a charger, and it's cheaper than all of the competition. Yeah, it doesn't have the power for outside, but I like flying whoops inside, as I say. I have found a new love for this guy though. I have joined a sports hall where they do indoor flying, and I think this is going to be just fantastic for that as well. So also in the package you get the screwdriver, which I mentioned. We've got some spare props here, and we've got some spare screws as well, and this looks like a prop remover because I think, yeah, there's no screws there, so they just lift up like that. Alrighty, well, it's raining, but I just want to take a quick look at the punch and compare that to the Beta 65. I think this has got more punch, you know, with those bigger props. Let's just try that again though. So let's go full throttle. So the UK 65 in comparison, definitely less power. So I think it's pretty clear that the Mobula 7 has the most power out of all of those. Sorry about the gloomy day, by the way. I really am just flying between rain clouds. In fact, I think this flight ends in it raining, but you can see it's doing the dive and it's not pitching back. So something that happens with tiny whoops or models that have got like ducks or protectors on them is that Betaflight or the flight controller just isn't designed to cope with it, and it acts as like drag and like a wing, and it can sort of self-level the model or cause unwanted movements like backwards pitches or yaw movements some people get as well. This has none of that, and I don't know if it's just because it's a slightly bigger model, but the Beta 65 had that. This flies superb. It is a very windy day. I think there is a little bit to be done on the PIDs, but I didn't want to mess with them really because I wanted to see how it flew out of the box first of all, and I was worried that if I messed with them then it would start doing some of those strange characteristics that whoops sometimes do. You're gonna get a 3-minute flight time out of this. This is me doing a range test, so can you see there are 120 meters, those trees at the back, and getting quite a lot of break up there. I'm using a Bandicoot patch antenna in conjunction with True Diversity, so as I say, it's probably outputting 9 milliwatt, not 25 milliwatt, but you know, it's enough for this field. But if you're looking at doing long range, then you know, maybe this isn't for you. Also, if you look at the RSSI figure, I think it's wrong. So as this is an SPI based receiver, the RSSI is disabled in Betaflight. Look at the rain coming down there. But it feeds through still to the on-screen display, and I think it's wrong because when you set it up as a channel, it's more accurate, and I didn't get any fail-safes. Anyways, this is me having a go indoors. I flattened the camera out there, and I'm trying to go through all the gaps that I can with the UK 65, and I can't do it. I'm bashing into things, you know, just that little bit of extra size there is causing me to hit stuff. I also do think as well that when you have a 2S battery, it's creating more draft. It's a heavier model, you know, more turbulence and stuff, but of course, you know, you can stick a 1S on this one and it will fly. So I would say if you want to fly this one indoors in these tight spaces, do that, because you can see I'm just bashing into things. Even going up the stairs and bashing into things. So yeah, I think just a little bit too much draft, a little bit too much power, but all you need to do is just put a jumper across one of those connectors there, and then you can use a 1S. But yeah, I'm trying to fly through the symbols of the drums here, which I can usually do no problems. It's causing some problems here, so yeah, it's a bit of a pathetic flight indoors, but as I said, I should have put 1S on there, but again, just a little bit too wide, I think, as well. The Beta 65, once I sorted the camera out, I could get through the same gaps as the UK 65, and as you will see here, I just can't do it. I'm hitting stuff all of the time. And actually Betaflight reset in that crash, which I thought was interesting. But anyways, I've flown at this one a lot. I do really like it. You can do all of the Lua scripts and everything that you can do with the UK 65, and it's, you know, it's got that little bit more power. And yeah, I just think it's a little more suited for outdoors or in a bigger house, or, you know, I'm really looking forward to flying it in the sports hall for sure. But yeah, I will put a link in the description if you wish to get one. I don't think it's the best whoop because it's just a little bit too big for me where I like to fly, and when I like to fly outside, I fly a bigger model that doesn't have ducks. But I do understand, you know, people worried about the safety, you know, if you are a beginner, if you've got ducks on there, if you accidentally hit someone or, you know, something property, then, you know, it's not going to do as much damage as blades hitting. But look at this, I could not trick this model out at all. I'm flying it like a 5-inch. I'm doing my knife edge cartwheels, I'm doing the backflips, I'm doing the dives. So, you know, this is the one to get if you are wanting to have a good experience outside. And yeah, as I say, flight time, I think just over 3 minutes for this one, and this was giving it death as well. I did have to change the battery warning. I think it was just the stock settings there, and you just get a constant warning because the battery sags. You can see there we are 1.5 minutes in and it's at 6 volts. You'd normally be landing at 6 volts, but here, of course, because of the sag, we can keep going. If I disarmed at this point, the voltage would shoot up to probably about 7 volts. So, you know, you want to be landing really when it starts to go down to about 5.9 volts, or you start to see it just flicker at 5.9 volts like it's starting to do now. Can you see 5.9? So yeah, I'll be coming in for a landing. But actually, if you calm it down at this point, which I do, you'll notice the voltage creeps back up again, and you can just cruise around for the last part of the flight if you like. But yeah, pretty decent model, I think. I'm just still trying to place it in the hobby when, you know, we've got other micros out there. But if you are into this sort of thing, I think you'll have a good experience with it. So I will link it in the below, and I'm actually gonna see if I can trick out this RSSI thing. Can you see it's going down to 30s there? Now normally you would expect a failsafe when that happens, but you know it doesn't. So I don't think that SPI RSSI figure is reading correctly, and I would set up a specific channel. But there you go, thanks for watching, and as always, please continue to subscribe. Cheers.